You famously won the Heisman Trophy. Uh, you famously battled with the NCAA. This week, the NCAA gave back Reggie Bush his Heisman. You were very outspoken about him getting the Heisman back and the challenges with the NCAA. Give me your take on what happened. I also like that Reggie Bush has said he's still suing the NCAA. Give me your take on sort of how that drama ends from your point of view.
Yeah, I think just the whole thing is just in its entirety is so amazing. I've throughout this process obviously been very vocal about Reggie and about my desire and my want and for me to see him get his trophy back. So, luckily last week I got to go to a Heisman Summit down in Florida and be with a lot of the guys as Reggie was getting his trophy back. And what an amazing thing! What a very cool experience to be a part of, right? A lot of people gave me credit for what happened. And I sit here today and feel ecstatic, not for myself or what was done, but for Reggie himself. There were a lot of things that came out, and Reggie said himself, like that was as close and as low as I've ever been in my life when that thing got taken away from me, when my Heisman got taken away from me. So I had empathy for Reggie. I had a soft spot in my heart for a guy who had done so much for the game of college football that wasn't allowed to be there with us every single year. And I think it was wrong. And I'm so thankful for the Heisman Trust to be able to come to a decision like that. I'm so happy for Reggie to be able to walk into his house again and see his trophy and be able to do that, because I couldn't imagine putting myself in his shoes and having to go through that. And the first thing that I thought of whenever he got it back was, fuck the NCAA. Sorry for my language. Like, they deserve everything they have coming to them. And it's only a matter of time until we see the demise of the NCAA forever. I will be sitting here with a bucket of popcorn and my Heisman Trophy right next to me, waiting for that day that I see that alert.
You just mentioned something that was really interesting to me, which I don't think I understood. You said you were at a Heisman Trust meeting. So is that like the Heisman house? Are there just like a bunch of Heisman winners hanging out? Like what happens there?
We get a chance every year to go to New York for the ceremony, and then really outside of that, we don't have a lot of interaction other than the guys that you're kind of friends with in the Heisman house, I guess. So this for us is continuing to keep our fraternity tight. Continuing to get a chance to spend some time around true legends of the game of college football. The Heisman Trust itself does an amazing job for us at allowing some events for us to come, do things for charity, what our future looks like as far as the Heisman Trophy. There's a lot of changes that are happening in college football right now, and I think the Heisman Trust is aware of that. I think each and every one of us as members are aware of that, and collectively as a whole, I think every one of us wants the Heisman to be everything that it's supposed to be, from not just the trophy itself, but what they do as far as giving back, what they do as a Heisman trust as a whole. And they look to us for a lot of input on that. And luckily I'm one of the younger guys that gets a chance to sit back, and like I don't have to thrust my opinion onto everything. I get a chance to sit back and be around guys like Archie Griffin, who have won 2 of these things, who have been around and been involved with the trophy a lot longer than I have. I'm very much on the younger side of things, but at the end of the day, I feel each and every member, while some guys are at times more important than others, each and every member has a voice, and it means a lot to me. That trophy means a lot to me. That every winner there means a lot to me, and every person that's been involved with that trophy, it feels like when I go back and see everybody that it's 2012 all over again, and I'm just walking across that stage for the first time. It's one of the biggest things I've ever got to do in my life. Why wouldn't I take it serious?
Yeah,
It's interesting to me. Sam, I got one more follow up, but you never think about the Heisman Trophy winners being buddies, right? Because it's an individual award, and like you don't think about times when they would get together. So I'm just thinking about sort of they have the commercial, the Heisman House, which is really funny. But the idea that that kind of camaraderie and brotherhood actually exists, is there like a Heisman winner text chain? Like, is it you? Are you and Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush? Like, are you guys all just texting each other about different things?
There might be. I try my best and to look at it from my perspective. I think it means differently to each and every one of the guys. But for me, I think, when a guy wins it, I immediately get on Twitter or Instagram and I reach out and I say congratulations and try to create a relationship from the first day that they walk across the stage. It's what a lot of guys did with me whenever I went to New York for the first time and I won. And luckily I got a chance to go back the next year and have some of those relationships already in place. So for me, I do a job myself in my own right of reaching out to the guys, saying what's up, trying my best to have a relationship with a lot of the guys that are there. It's tough to have it with every single one over the years. We're all in different places, different ages, different things like that. But for me and what I want to do, I want to be a guy who is open to anything that these guys could ever need from me, and be a friend and a brother here with whatever I could do.
Yeah, I think we could all agree. The NFL, obviously, it's my first love, but there's no cooler award in sports than the Heisman. The Heisman is peak. It's just everything about it's cool. Everything, the whole ceremony too. All the guys on the stage, like you just talked about, the brotherhood. Even when you go around and you shake their hands, they all give you this look of like, you don't even know. Like your whole life is changed forever. Like you're in now this brotherhood. So it honestly warms my heart knowing that you guys do talk and get together like that, because it's like you guys are part of this really small group that only know this life, how your life does change so much from it. So just piggybacking off the Heisman talk, this time last year, no one was talking Daniels. Like he was not someone people were really talking about for Heisman. And if you go through the Heisman history, like you, Johnny, when you won it, like it's always these people that come out of nowhere. Baker Mayfield came out of nowhere. Like that's why we love betting the Heisman, because you can get people at 50-1, crazy long shot odds. Right now, you're looking at the board this upcoming season, Johnny. Is there anyone that pops off for you for being someone that you want to bet for Heisman?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough, right? Like there's very, very few years where your favorite going into the preseason is going to be the guy who comes out and wins it. It happens, but
Almost
based
never.
off, yeah, but almost never really.
Yeah.
Like, for the years that I've watched and that I've seen, it usually is somebody from the back of the pack. So I think there's a lot of like stellar QBs right now in college football, guys who are going to like have some unbelievable seasons. And just looking at it right now, I think Jackson Dart from Ole Miss is a guy that I would keep an eye on this year. I think him and Lane Kiffin are going to be up to something really special. I think Quinn Ewers from Texas, as tough as that is being an Aggie over here, but a good kid, a great quarterback. I think he's going to make a lot of noise. We'll see how they do their first year in the SEC. Realistically, you need to probably only have a couple losses on your schedule here unless your numbers are that much exceedingly over everybody else's. And then I like Jalen Milroe from Alabama. I think this guy is going to come this year and come back better than he was last year. He's an absolute physical specimen. I think those are three guys right there, all SEC guys that are going to battle for first team all SEC. And I think, they'll end up probably getting a chance. One of those guys and those three, I think, will end up in New York.
Jackson Dart, 16-1 at Bet365. Milroe, Quinn Ewers are 8-1 at Bet365. It has become the kind of award where you basically need to be in the Big Ten or the SEC in order to win it. We saw that this year with Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix. When you look at Milroe, Milroe was 40-1 to go number one in the draft next year. Now he's down to 9-1. When you are a quarterback at that stage of development, think back to your time in college. What is it like when you can start to feel a coach giving you a little bit more confidence, which is what he went through this year and similar to what happened to you when you were in your freshman year?
Yeah, it's just getting all the snaps under your belt that you getting all the games under your belt, and then just come back the next year, not having to worry about, the little butterflies you have before the game, the little nervousness about how to run this system or this operation. Your off season from year one to year two very much goes into detailing. So you go into the detail of what your offense is, being able to run it, easier signals, this, that. Your operation runs really, really smoothly as you come back. Especially when you have the quarterback coming back. That's the catalyst of the whole thing. College football offenses, for the most part, only run through a really, really good QB. Or there's some out there that run the ball really well and it goes through a running back, of course. But the majority of the time, it's a quarterback-driven position. And to have a guy that had a lot of success in year one coming back into year two, you would think that the operation only gets smoother.
All right, before we let you get out of here, so I know you got to get going. You were famously a dynamic football player in college, won the Heisman, as we discussed. Give Simon and I, give us your favorite, most dynamic college football players you've personally seen, sort of your 5 faves, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, from my time, is the guys that I've seen in person or guys that I've seen on film or like just college football in general?
I would say guys that you've seen in our generation, say going back the past 20 years, because the game changes so much, right? So like the way you were playing it is different than the way, people were playing it in the 1970s. People will go back and say, Archie Griffin is one of the greatest college football players ever. Different game. So let's think about it in the context of today's game.
I think guys who changed the game a lot, guys who are the most fun and electric that I got to watch. I think Reggie Bush is very, very high up at the top of that list. I think the guy who finished number 2 in the Heisman that year is just an absolute electric player who was a guy who I modeled a lot of my game after. But Vince Young was a guy who was an absolute legend. I loved watching Tavon Austin when he was at West Virginia. That guy really, really, really moved the needle. A guy that a lot of people forget about that I loved to watch was DeAnthony Thomas at Oregon around my time, was an absolute stud. And then, last, the guy you have to give so much credit to for changing the way that the whole quarterback game was like really played, as far as like the era that we're in now, right? I think can't have a list of exciting college football players without having Lamar Jackson on that list.
That's right. God, Tavon Austin and DeAnthony Thomas. You forget about DeAnthony Thomas.
Beast, an absolute beast. Just watching him and some of the plays that he made at Oregon was just crazy. Another guy that's forgot about who was in my class, who was amazing at Ohio State. I loved watching Braxton Miller. I thought Braxton Miller, he was the number 1 quarterback coming out of my class, ended up going to Ohio State. There's still a spin move that he hit that I still can play in my head any day. That the guy was just an absolute freak, that he was at Ohio State. And college football is so hard, man. You can't, negate it to 5, especially over 20 years. Like over the last 20 years, there's been probably, 15, 20 guys that have truly, truly moved the needle. And it's not just a quarterback, not just a running back, receiver. Like the college game, the beauty of it is you get to see so much raw talent, against, every single Saturday. So it's an unbelievable game, one that I love watching, and, excited to see what this next season up brings too.